I'm really glad to be here. What I'm not going to talk about, well, I was actually, I got some inspiration from the previous lectures today. I listened, so I had some more slides and removed some. And one of the things that I'm not going to talk about is the late heavy bombardment. For several reasons. First, we don't know if it did really exist and what is its true nature. And it happened before really the life that we are concerned about. I mean, the modern style of life appeared. So I will skip this part, but I will tell you more about the possible consequences in nowadays world and how the impacts kind of influenced the biological evolution and well, maybe some aspects going back to the very early to the origin of the life here on Earth. When we think about the impacts and what we really kind of how we imagine those things, then I guess that most of us have seen those rock in movies or in some TV shows, some animations with the rocks falling down from the sky and getting bigger and bigger and the chaos and drama getting higher and higher, and then we have those fireballs flying around and we are pretty afraid. I mean, the characters in those movies or whatever are pretty afraid of the thing, and then the impact happens and well, everyone is very sad, or the thing that we could do, we could send this damn guy up there to rescue all us, sweating as always, but in the very, very last moment pressing the button, and well, the problem is solved. But there's another way looking, I mean, how the impacts kind of the people around understand the impacts actually is, well, this is one way of handling impacts. Another way is well, if the rock is too big and there is nothing else to do, then just sit down and to wait it coming, and that's it. But there is also a bit kind of the good side of it, because, well, when looking at this size of the body, well, this could be the next water coming to the Earth. Well, thinking about the last lecture, but really, I mean, this is kind of the common understanding of the impact around in the public, because there have in human history, in the written history, in documented history, there has not been any kind of impact. So we've seen those objects flying around in space for thousands of years, and pretty well documented, like the comets already recorded in this nice picture imaging the coronation of the Herald of England on 6th of January 1066, and well, the people have known those objects there, as I said, for some time, and well, even if they didn't really understood their kind of meaning or the origin of those objects, they took them as some kind of signs, and in this case the Herald of England took it as an evil sign of Normans' invasion to the Britain. And not just only, well, we haven't just seen them flying around, but we've seen them falling down, stones falling down from skies. And well, again, known from old times. Well, the one here imaged is from 7th of November 1492, when Columbus kind of discovered America. In today's France, actually, well, it was at the time the Austria, Alsace area. And when chondrite, nowadays we know that this was an ordinary chondrite, stony meteorite, fell down at the city borders in a wheat field. It's pretty well documented. So those things were pretty well known, and but what was interesting about this particular case is that the Kaiser Maximilian first thought that this was a good sign actually to conquer today's parts of the France, that are the parts of the France again. But anyway, so the people have kind of seen those things and have kind of taken them as a signs of some god or some other unknown forces. And those the people have realized for decades actually that and for centuries that those rocks were pretty different around flying around the earth and falling down, and those are well, this is a kind of classification chart of the rocks, but basically when we look what are those rocks falling from sky, then most of them are stony meteorites, which is chondrites, halchondrites, different kinds of them. Then we have a very small portion of mixed stony iron meteorites, and then there are iron meteorites, which is about 5 to 6%. And then of course we do have those very rare, very unique meteorites from Martian rocks, Martian meteorites, and some lunar stuff around. And people realized actually that, okay, well, those are the small pieces falling down from the sky, but already in the very beginning of several centuries ago, when the first telescopes were made and people started looking around, then they realized that some of those rocks can be pretty large. And to compare, well, this is in comparison with the Moon, the largest asteroids, Ceres or Vesta or whatsoever. And here is Ida. Well, the length is about 60 kilometers, 59, 58 to be more exact. But those are pretty big. And if you look at the distribution we know today, then we do have some thousands of objects with a diameter of about 10 kilometers. And you should remember this 10-kilometer thing here, because those are really large ones flying around. And okay, the big objects, and we've known for centuries that where they come from. Well, we do have this asteroid belt, you know better than me how many asteroids we have there, the main belt, and along Jupiter orbit the Greeks, Trojans, and Hildas somewhere in between. So, well, this is a source for those stony iron and iron objects flying around. Then also, well, what about those comets flying around again? We've known for pretty long time. Okay, well, maybe not for so long time as the asteroid belt, but that in the outer areas of the solar system there is a huge area filled with comets. The Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud, and the people have estimated that the mass of the Oort cloud is in the range of the whole our solar system planetary, the masses of the planets, or at least Jupiter. So it's a huge amount, huge number of objects flying around, the comets and asteroids. But then if we ask, okay, well, we know that those things fly around, and from time to time they come down, fell down to the Earth's surface, and we can find them. And but so what? Well, I mean, they come down, but there is no impact. Okay, well, if it comes down to you, I mean, exactly hits into your head, well, it may hurt, but or kill. I don't know any cases of meteorites killing someone. In the history, well, at least in written history, but those things are pretty harmless. We don't have any signs of kind of major collisions, and looking at this Earth map here, well, you cannot point just looking here on this map any of the craters. There is no sign of them. Okay, I happen to know a number of them here around, but that more or less could point those. But basically, looking them, there is no. Okay, well, today we know about 200 proved craters around the Earth, but there's very little of them, and none of those craters formed. Impacts happened at the time when we were around. At least we were looking around and we were remembering something. So the understanding of the impacts, well, even we've known for thousands of years, for centuries, that those things are flying around and come down from time to time. Then they are pretty harmless, as I said. Nothing really happens. But then when we look at the moon, and already when the first telescopes were made, the people started to look at the moon, and then there we notice the huge, large number of craters around. Already, I'd say that already in the very beginning of 18th century, there were maps, moon maps made, pretty detailed. Okay, well, the people did draw, like on Mars later, some funny things there, and even thought that the people are living there, flying fairy people. But nevertheless, I mean, they were there, and of course, people have started to think about the origin of those features, those crater-like features. And it soon, already in the very end of 19th century, actually, people realized that, when already kind of systematic work was done, realized that, okay, we do have those crater structures, and the kind of common understanding or common thesis was that those are volcanic of volcanic origin. But even if anyone started to think about some other origin, like an impact origin, putting together those flying objects around the Earth, where we know, and they are falling down, so maybe those can produce those craters, but always all those ideas kind of stopped at the one very simple thing: why are the craters all circular, and where is the impactor? Because and people, this was not just only kind of logical discussion, but people made experiments, and Carl Gilbert was one of the first ones who really did experiments, impact experiments, and he did notice that, okay, well, you form a circular crater when the impact is vertical, but then you should have the impactor there left. And when it comes at some angle, then you don't form a circular crater anymore, and then it gets oval. So the question is why they are all circular, and another question, where the impactor? Well, if it came down, okay, it shattered into pieces, but in the large ones, but in small ones, where are those objects flying around. Not all of them are comets. Okay, well, at the time the people didn't really care about much composition here. By the way, one of the first ideas was that those funny spots in the very center, central peaks, those are remains of the impactor, but people started to look more closely, and they soon realized that, okay, well, we should have this the pieces of the impactor left in the smaller craters, but well, there is nothing in the small craters. So this was a kind of the big problem, and one of the kind of unsolved mysteries of the impact cratering, until this guy came in 1916. Astronomer, by the way, from the same university I am, Ernst Julius Oeppig, well, realized that, oh, something else is going on. This is not just hitting the ground. This is an explosion. And actually, how he did kind of realized it, was that he was measuring the speeds of the comets, how fast they go in outer space, and he realized that, okay, the speed is about 40 to 45 kilometers per second, and that was a moment that, well, this is not just, as I said, hitting. This is an explosion. All this kind of energy is released at the very surface of the object, and of course this is not well, the cast that is left by the impactor, but this is an explosion. And when it's an explosion, then you do form, well, if it comes down from at the vertical at 45 degrees, 20 degrees, well, you form a circular crater, as this very nice modeling video shows here. Well, if it's less than 15 degrees, then you start forming oval shape stuff, but those are very rare. So in most cases it comes down at, let's say, the highest probability that is at 45 degrees. And this was a moment. Of course, well, this is one of the stories that I'm telling to my students, that yes, he wrote this paper in 1916, but it was written in German and in a wrong language, sorry for Germans, in a very wrong place, in the small university in Estonia, somewhere in Tartu, and it was forgotten for about 40, 50 years. Okay, nowadays, well, it's kind of a common knowledge, but it was until 1935, 1935, when actually some other guy from New Zealand came up with the same idea. But the point is that this is not just, as I said, the hitting the ground, leaving the cast of the impactor, but this is an explosion. And this is a very complicated explosion, because if we look at those craters, then we see that those are not just only holes in the ground, but they can be of very complex structure. And the small ones are pretty simple, bowl shape, and then we have the larger ones that are really get complicated, have a complicated inner structure. And well, this very simple animation actually showed the process of impact cratering. To repeat it again, well, okay, let's repeat it another way. That in a slow motion, because the cratering itself is not just only creating the cavity or the crater itself, but there are several kind of processes involved. The first thing that we have, well, we have some asteroid coming down. Well, this is a model series of cartoons made for Riis crater, which is nowadays 24 kilometers in diameter in southern Germany. So first we have this asteroid coming down. Well, this is from asteroid belt. This is about 15 to 20 kilometers per second. Okay, well, most probably about 15, not really 20. And we have the first kind of the contact phase, and we have the vaporization of the of the projectile, of the impactor, and the rocks at the very surface, and we develop here kind of jet flows, which are vaporized cloud of and droplets of the melted and vaporized rock material that flies around. Nowadays, well, I guess that most of you have heard about tektites. Well, this is a moment when the tektites are formed and flying out. Then we have the first phase, which is a transient cavity forming. Well, this is a shock wave moving into the rock, into the depth and to the sides. We have ejector blanket. Huge amount of material is kind of excavated, and it's flown out from the crater. And we do have the ejecta bloom developing. So the next phase is that in large craters it continues expansion to the sides, but the bottom part and the transient cavity is collapsing, and it's kind of well, in a sort of relaxation, elastic relaxation goes on, and the bottom is lifted up and forms so-called central peak. And this is the ejecta bloom. This well, I will explain a bit about the temperatures and what is the nature of the bloom itself. So, and this is a kind of the collapse of the ejecta bloom. So like in all big explosions, you evolve this nuclear kind of mushroom up there, and it goes down. But what is funny about the large craters, at least large ones, I mean, what I mean by large craters, let's say the diameter about 2 kilometers, 2, 3, 4 kilometers and larger. That, well, this kind of seems to be the final phase of the crater formation, but no. This cloud comes down, and then we have a layer of melted, superheated rocks. And if we have some water, and we do have water in all rocks around the world, around the Earth. So this superheated material starts to explode again. Well, this is quite due to some fluidal interaction with evaporating materials. Well, the water, or you have CO2 evolving from the carbonates or whatever the source of the fluids are, and it starts to explode again, and it can happen in series of explosions. The first bloom explodes, and then another one. So it kind of starts to boil. Well, the boiling is maybe the correct word to describing it. And this takes this. Well, no one really knows how long it takes because no one has seen it. But it may take hours, days, maybe even weeks. People have argued about the weeks. And well, this is the final kind of stage where the impact pool, melt pool in the very center of the crater has kind of lost its volatiles, and it's kind of cooling down. And this is a final crater here. Well, with elevated rims and some fragmented material in the center, and if the craters are big enough, then also some melt is left here. Okay, well, but as I said, we do have two different kinds of craters. We have simple ones which are bowl-shaped with very nicely defined dimensions. Typically, well, the ratio between the depth and the diameter is about 1 to 5. The final crater, the 1 to 3 for the transient cavity, and then we have those large craters with elevated central uplifts. So the size matters actually. Well, this depends on the size of the explosion, size of the impactor, and the speed of the impactor. What is important that actually we can see here, well, the kind of transition. We start from the simple craters, like here into 7 kilometers in diameter. Then we have this transitional one. Look at this kind of blurred or disturbed crater floor. It's about 16 kilometers. All those are from Moon. So we have a nice gentle peak crater, Euler. It's about 28 kilometers. And then we have the large peak ring basin, the Schrödinger, which is 320 kilometers in diameter. So we do have this kind of transition from simple craters to the complex craters. But what is important here is that the transition, I mean the limit when actually simple craters modified and became complex craters, it depends on the planetary body we are looking at. This is scaled with the gravity. So well, on Earth, the crater of this size, about 7 kilometers, would be already like a complex crater with a gentle peak. 16 kilometers, it is a bit, well, and the crater of larger than 30 kilometers would look like on Earth, like already peak ring basin. So this, as I said, this depends on gravity, and well, on Moon the transition is somewhere at 15 kilometers. We look at Earth, then we have this transition at about 4 kilometers. The largest, the known simple crater is 3.8 kilometers in Canada, and then we have the smallest known to date complex crater. It's about 4 kilometers. It heavily depends on the target. Well, if it's just a crystalline rock, is it a sedimentary rock or whatever. So, well, I mean, this makes a difference, but the thing is that this transition is dependent on gravity. Okay, well, we have those craters, and we have simple, complex craters, and but what about this energy? What about this plume, for example? What are the kind of what pressures we are talking about? What kind of temperatures we had? And well, this is a modeling kind of case of an impactor, which is pretty large, 1 kilometer in diameter, but it doesn't matter actually. I mean, even at the smallest craters, let's say that you have an impactor of let's say 3-4 meters, yeah, to tell, okay, we have some iron meteorite coming down about 3 meters in diameter, and this would create about 80, 90, 100 meters crater here. Okay, it depends. Okay, well, this is loose sand, so we'd end up with about 80, 70 meters in this particular case. But even if it's much smaller crater than this 1 kilometer impactor would create, I mean, the temperatures and the pressures are equally high. Okay, maybe not really 300 GPAs, but in order of 5 to 10, no problem, even in small craters. But the point is to understand the scale. If we look the processes in Earth crust, I mean the geology as it works, then the maximum pressures in very limited occasions, in very few cases, reach up to 5 GPAs, and that's all. So everything above that, well, this has to be related to some impact. So and you can imagine that in the contact phase, well, it gets really very high here. So about temperatures, we know that, okay, the hottest lava that comes out nowadays flows out, well, this is about, I don't know, 11, 14 degrees Celsius. Well, you can add or subtract this you can convert it into Kelvin scale, but it doesn't matter at all, because, well, we are talking here about 10,000. We're talking about 5,000 degrees. So, well, I mean, this is really superheated, very high temperatures, very high pressures running through the rock, and well. And even in this case, well, we have this 1 kilometer, and if you look here, well, this is kind of the the front moving through. Well, it goes down to about 5 to even 7 kilometers depth. Those high pressure wave and those temperatures. So, well, this is something that you don't have in normal kind of geology, and or in normal geological process we're used to, and this was actually one of the reasons why people were arguing about the impact process for years, and there were people and still are who really don't want to accept those things, because you don't see let's say the plates racing, and you barely can measure the plate movements in plate tectonics. But here is something that happens in a very okay, yeah, the time scales. Okay, you don't possibly see. Well, this is 0.065 seconds. Here is 1 second, and this is already kind of. Well, this is still a transient cavity forming, but within seconds. Everything happens within seconds. And this was not really, as I said, accepted in the geological community, that something so catastrophic can happen. Well, one point is, I mean, if you look at those enormous pressures, we look at the temperatures, but also there are some things that we need to bear in mind, that okay, well, this is a very nice model, 3D model made for a Chicxulub size impactor. Well, this is a transient cavity collapse here, and well, I mean, the size of the transient cavity is here about, let's say, that 150 kilometers. It happens, okay, maybe not really in seconds, in minutes, in tens of minutes, but it doesn't take really hundreds of millions of years to put it up. But look at this kind of central peak, central ring basin forming here. We have the collapse, and well, this is 150 kilometers, and now it goes up. Well, here it's about 30 to 40 kilometers in really very limited time. Maybe, as I said, minutes, tens of minutes. We rise up the mountain, the pile of rock that is 3 times, at least 3-4 times higher than the highest mountains today on Earth, and then it collapses. Well, I'd say that if someone throws a rock somewhere at the other side of the world right now, well, it's what is opposite of France? Well,
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay. Well, I thought that the New Zealand is opposite of Estonia, but anyway, the France and Estonia makes the same. No problem. But anyway, okay, New Zealand. Anyone throw the rock into the, I don't know, the mud pool? Was in a bad mood or opposite of that. So, but anyway, well, we don't feel it. We don't care about it. But if something happens there, you take, well, we are building up here, well, I mean, the huge amount of the material and the rock into the pile of 30, 40 kilometers, and then it collapses. You certainly feel it. No problem. With that. So, well, I mean, first the very high shock wave, I mean the shock wave, extremely high temperatures, and then and displacement of the rock masses in a very, very short time. And of course, well, I mean, this makes sense. I mean, this makes an impact on something. It really depends. I mean, if we compare different kind of pieces of rock and flying around, and if we imagine about the stone coming down there about 10 centimeters in size, and then where this kind of energy goes, for what it is used, then it's just, you know, flash. Okay, well, simply nothing really well, and this is not something that we don't need to care about. That when it's about 1 meter in size, then it makes some sound. We hear it. We see it, we hear it, and maybe some kind of shock wave comes. Then we go to the 10. Okay, we are developing fireball, and we may have kind of a bigger blast, and then it goes and goes with the size, and then we go to the 10 kilometers. Well, I said, you remind this 10 kilometers, the thousands of 10 kilometer size asteroids flying around, and Chicxulub impactor projectile was about 10 kilometers in size. So, well, this is where the energy is kind of deposited to the crater formation, ejecta formation, but it scales with the size. And well, to be honest, the sound effect here is, we may hear it, but we don't get it afterwards. Well, so okay, let's put some figures here. And well, Hiroshima bomb we know pretty well, sadly. Well, it's somewhere here. And then we have this 1 kilometer, 1 to 1.2 kilometer size meteor crater in Arizona, or Barringer crater, or whatever we want to call it. And it's about order of magnitude. The energy equivalent is an order of magnitude higher than the typical hydrogen bomb. Well, nothing, not too bad to say. And then we go further. Well, we have the Houghton, which is okay, or Reese. It's the same thing. The Houghton is somewhere in Arctic Canada. No one cares about this. But let's think about the Reese. Not very far from here, also 24 kilometers. And this is, again, well, it is order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude kind of more energy was released compared with the largest earthquake we know. And if we go up in scale to the larger craters, about 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, and the Chicxulub 180, I'm not talking about Sudbury or Weatherford, which are about 200, 250 kilometers in diameter, then we don't have anything to compare with, really. So, I mean, there's a huge amount of energy that is released, and what is really important, if we look here, well, this is a total kind of energy, amount of energy that is released in a year on Earth, everything combined, and this is less than 50 kilometers crater in a diameter, final crater in diameter about 50 kilometers. So there is nothing to compare to that, and this is released in a very short time. So what is the potential damage that we'd had from the craters? Well, it's much used the diagram actually by Petri Berazzo and Natalia Artemyeva. So then, well, generally we'd say that if the impactor is less than 30 meters, then this is not really a big trouble. We have some, we see it, we hear it, and that's it. I'll come to that. And something bad is going to happen. I mean, not just globally, as I said. Well, if it hits into your head, well, you are hurt or dead. So, but in a larger scale, well, it starts to make trouble when it's in a 100-meter scale. So there we have large craters forming, we have tsunamis, we have well, if it happens into the sea environment, we have earthquakes, I mean impact-induced earthquakes, we have blast waves and so on and so on. And when we go up here, well, when it's really large, 10 kilometers in size, then we start talking about the total extinction. Okay, not maybe total extinction, but extinction of some groups of animals, plants, or whatever the life is. So, but let's go through all those sizes, kind of ranges, and see what has really happened. And to remind, well, this is already an old image, but I'd say that today we'd make a correction here, because to say that okay, the impactor about 30 meters doesn't make any trouble to us, because if we go and look the most recent event, this is a Chicxulub event 4 years ago. Nicely written down. Well, it was about 17 to 20 meters in diameter, impact fracture, stony meteorite, and as I said, 17 to 20, and it caused really a trouble. Okay, well, there was a kind of nice flash. There was a really significant blast wave going through and breaking windows, and it made the structure, of course. Well, this was a lake, and this was where they did found the largest piece, which was about 3 kilograms, about if I'm correct. So actually, even those, and it was really surprising that so small object that has been considered as really not really troublemaking, harmful, well, made such a noise, and not really only in media but in reality as well. So, and we were actually pretty lucky with this Chicxulub event that because it was a heavily fractured stony meteorite, and it broke up in a high atmosphere. If it well, there are different models showing that if it could have made lower heights or even reached the ground, the damage would have been higher. So larger. So well, this is what we know about Chicxulub. Then we go back in history. We have this mysterious event, Tunguska Event in 1908, which was comet. Some say that the chondrite explosion in atmosphere, high up in atmosphere. It's estimated it was 40 meters. Object and caused actually damage in the area that was pretty large. Well, this is about 10 kilometer scale here. This is a Moscow town. So would have made a really would have destroyed the city. No problem with that. What was interesting, this was only blast wave. And there was no really fire started, but the trees, the vegetation was charred. So it was like a heat wave, but it didn't ignite really. This has been kind of source of some discussion, but has given some ground for discussion, but really it didn't start the fire. That would have been expected from this side. But this is kind of, well, this is not really very big. Well, this is 40 meters and only, but the damage was remarkable. Again, happily it blasted up in the atmosphere. But But then let's jump forward and let's look what happened when this Barringer meteor Arizona crater formed. And well, it's dated about 50,000 years ago. There was no humans evidencing it, but some animals were looking definitely. So and the final diameter is about 1 kilometer, and it was an iron impactor of about 50 meters in size. It is a special meteorite called Canon Diablo meteorite. The Canon Diablo is up here, and this meteorite has well, besides of creating this kind of crater, is widely used in chemical studies than reference standard for sulfur isotopic analysis. But anyway, well, it's a simple crater, and not the largest one, not the largest impact simple crater on Earth. As I said, we have up to 3.8 kilometers. We have in India, in Lunar, we have 2 kilometers. Very nice crater, looking pretty similar to that, except there is a crater lake in it. So, but what was the damage here? So 50 meters object, and what was the damage here? At the time, well, this was a different environment. It's a desert today, well, dry area, but it was a forested area at the time. And it's estimated, this was David Gring's papers, that the fireball was about 10 kilometers. So, well, what does a fireball mean? Well, everything is gone. So it's finito. In this range, we have about, in radius of 15 kilometers, it's a shock wave that was strong enough to kill all large animals. And we had hurricane winds reaching about 30 kilometers. So in a local scale, pretty kind of devastation is pretty large, but again, well, you'd say, well, how far is the Bordeaux from here? 50 kilometers. Yeah, okay, we are in a safe zone, so it's we felt it there, and maybe this roof would collapse, but we are not in the fireball. So this is kind of to estimate what it is. So, but let's change the scale. Well, let's keep all others between, and let's look at the Chicxulub stuff if it really happened in this way. So the crater itself is final crater is 180 kilometers. Impactor size is about 10 kilometers. This is why all people working in this impact business like this 10 kilometers size. And the age is pretty well established. It's 65.5 million years with a pretty small error. And it happened, well, this is the Yucatan Peninsula, you know, and well, we don't see much on the surface, but we have some data from geophysics showing really nice ring impact basin here. Okay, well, what were the consequences of the Chicxulub event, so-called? What happened at this KT boundary? Well, I'm still using the kind of traditional term here. Well, this is 60.55. This is the clay layer full of funny stuff, spherals, altered spherals, iridium in August in Spain. And what we had before, we had those guys running around, and then you had to come back, well, to this guy. Well, we had this guy afterwards. Well, at the very end, again saving us all. But well, this is kind of the event. Of course, we do have, and I skipped this part about alternate hypothesis because people have been telling that for years that for some reason the dinosaurs started to die out before the impact itself. They were scared of it coming, but they see it coming and were scared of it. And nowadays we have reached a stadium where people are talking about this impact inducing the volcanism in Deccan Plateau. So there are several hypotheses, including those who, well, you can interpret it in different ways how it might happen. But the point is that something really happened at this boundary, and this is not fun at all, because if you look in marine environment, this is a really extinction. Those are different species coming up here, well, and at this boundary they disappear. We do have some guys surviving the impact, and then we have the new ones radiating here. So the new beginnings, and one of the things that the impacts actually may provide is a new beginnings. But then we had there is no doubt that this was a kind of really the event. Something happened in a very short time. We have disturbances in carbon cycle. That was actually, we had a very nice kind of presentation. You need to change something very rapidly, very drastically to change this system. And then, of course, we do have this iridium peak, and you already had this introduction that all this iridium we have in Earth crust, okay, not all, but significant amount of it comes with the meteoritic material. So we have this magical high iridium peak here, and well, this indication that some extraterrestrial material came in. And well, this is a scale of the Deccan traps with the volcanism, and well, those bars indicate actually the kind of the events, and it really seems that the beginning of this event does not correspond to the main extinction level here. So, and what is also important that well, we do this thing happening globally. We do have all those blue spots indicate the locations where the traces of this impact have been found in the form of not just only this clay layer, okay, nowadays clay layer, but this material depositing back from atmosphere or directly ejected material, but all other signs we see it really globally. So there is a global evidence of this event. And okay, we did have this, let's talk about the global kind of influences, because the impact itself happened in a very certain place. I mean, this huge pile of rock during the greater modification was raised up and collapsed in a very certain place. So, but what were the kind of influences that this impact had at some distance from the crater itself? And the first thing to worry about are the tsunamis. And this is some models showing the different scenarios. You have a ocean, 5 kilometers of water. You have a epicontinental basin, shallow water. In either case, you form tsunamis, and pretty high. Look at this here. Well, I do like this one. If it was a deep water, not so deep in this Chicxulub site, but you form a central peak about 5 kilometers. So actually the modeling reaches the boundary kind of condition here. So it's and when it splashes down, then you really produce global tsunamis, wiping everything out on its way. This is something that we happen to know. from recent past. Okay, well, those are things that pretty can be modeled. This is from Stephen Ward, kind of the model showing the distribution, I mean that how this tsunami wave started to move out, and the heights, well, this is the yellow, this is about 20-30 meters of the tsunami wave height, and actually, well, I do have here a model. Let's start it, which is even nicer. Not just look only the wave moving here, but again, the vertical scale is important. So, and this is kind of the real situation showing this tsunami damage. And well, in this scale, I'd say that everything was in the coastal areas. Everything was wiped out. No problem. And that other side of the Atlantic, that was not so wide at the time as well. So okay, this is tsunami. Well, but if the animals were living in higher grounds and were not really infected, well, out of the reach of tsunami waves, then the other thing is those are atmospheric effects and the wildfires. So, well, to say, well, this is again not really clear. Well, in what was the extent of wildfires, but this is one of the models kind of showing Daniel Durrell's model showing the distribution of the wildfires. But we do have actually the pretty strong evidence showing that this time large areas were burnt down because we have the charcoal, the soot remaining found in those beds. So this was one of the things. I'm not going to talk about ozone layer depletion, but also, well, we had some acid rain effects because the target in Chicxulub area was composed of limestone and calcium sulfate rocks, anhydrite rocks. So everything was released because of the thermal dissociation of those mineral phases. So, but even more importantly, if we think about the Chicxulub consequences, then the impact winter. Okay, we heard definitely about the nuclear winter phenomenon. The same thing, the impact winter thing. That first we have first we burn everything down, and then it turns dark because of all this dust, all this material, all those aerosol material flying around, and it turns dark and cold, and then we turn back to the greenhouse. And if we think about the kind of the consequences of the global consequences, effects of the Chicxulub, then not just really the impact itself, but all those effects associated with atmospheric effects were responsible for those changes. Is there any? Well, this is a nice model made several years ago, but is there kind of evidence of this impact winter? Then yes, this is a very recent paper, actually in 2014 and now in 2016. Well, you don't see much, but you see, well, this is a sea surface temperature about 30, and it drops down to 24, 23. Well, this is a really cooling going on here, and we have this iridium anomaly. So, well, it was really a very short kind of event, cooling down combined. So the global climate was cooled down, and it get pretty dark. And what happened actually, we can argue about this, but this kind of event had really the influence to the vegetation, to the plant system, to the photosynthesis. And what this is everything. This is at the base of the food change, and this is again more than 10 years old image of the kind of imagination of the food chains before the impact. We had these guys here happy in both ways. Well, you had dinosaurs in a row, and you had us here eating of some detritus and some worms and whatever the box were left for us, living on this detritus. Basically, what happens, we kill everything out without, well, it's not just only the darkness, but also the cold, the cooling down the climate. Well, there is nothing to eat, and you don't need tens or hundreds of years for that. Well, look at winter. What happens in the winter? Well, everything dies out. Okay, not here, but it was minus 7 degrees and snowing in Estonia today in the morning. So, well, in those conditions, well, I guess that you don't find much to eat for, at least for those guys. But those under the snow, well, they may survive actually, living on this material left actually after the explosion itself. So, well, and this is kind of the things that really happened, and gave not really the new beginning, but beginning for us. But the conclusion here would be that the large impacts are the global killers, and okay, well, this 10 meters doesn't kill many. Okay, even the 50 meters, I mean the meteor crater size impactor doesn't kill many. Okay, well, in a considerable radius, but still not really the global scale. But those large ones, 50 kilometers, I mean the craters, final crater, 120 kilometers, 200 kilometers of the crater size. Those events are really the global killers. But it's not so easy actually, because if we look here, well, we do have several extinctions. I don't go very deeply into it, but here is a KT boundary. Well, this is an extinction here, but we had before, like Permian Triassic extinction here. We have here in Devonian extinction. We have Ordovician Silurian extinction. So, well, those are all impacts, and people have really looked for it. But it's not so, as I said, it's not so simple, because if we go, well, Ordovician Silurian, there is no craters, known craters. For men, well, there is a Cillian. It's about in a diameter of 60, 80 kilometers, but doesn't really coincide with it. There is nothing proven for Permian Triassic. There is nothing at this boundary, Triassic, Jurassic, except Rochechouart. Well, this is not very far from here. It's about 200, 250 kilometers from here. But it's very small. Okay, very small. Yeah, it's about 20 kilometers in size. Well, this is not a global killer. But then we have this one here. Actually, well, there are two craters, the Baltisch and Chicxulub. Baltisch is not so big, but Chicxulub seems to be in the right place. Then we happen to have huge impact craters in the size of about 100 kilometers, 60 kilometers, 80 kilometers, without any impact. I mean, we don't see any kind of global impact of those craters. And what is really true about the Chicxulub is that there is something special. Everything goes into it. So those are different kind of crabs used. It was in 80s. They draw a line here, said that okay, everything bigger than this one, about let's say 40, 50 kilometers, causes some extinction. Well, this is a species decline, the kill. So and then they did another one, and then the other one. But nowadays it looks like this. So up to 100 kilometers, and the final crater Poppyguy, Chesapeake. Okay, well, Chesapeake is not so big anymore. Well, it was. It's not much smaller, but anyway, the Poppyguy is still there. Nothing really happens there. Well, I mean, there is no evidence of global influence. You can see it locally, yeah, fine, no problem. But everything goes up here. And what is important when we think about the kind of consequences of the impacts on the life, then everything is about size, yes, but also timing and location. Because it defines the kind of the potential impact that an impact could have into the system. Because if you look here, well, this is extinction risk here. So Chicxulub was, it doesn't even matter how big it was. Well, it could have been smaller, let's say 100 and 120 kilometers. It still had a kind of high potential to kill globally someone. I mean, for the extinction risk. Because it happened in the time when the climate was generally very warm. I did show you that the mean surface sea temperature was about 30 degrees and ticked up for about 23, 24 in this very area. It happened in a sedimentary target. I mean, a huge pile of sedimentary rocks, carbonate rocks, CO2, anhydrite, calcium sulfate, sulfuric acid, and it happened in a shallow sea environment, another kind of argument or important fact to remember. So, well, the size is not really the problem, but the timing and the location is really the problem with those large impacts. Okay, well, the next question, when the next one arrives, and well, we happen to know that the KT type events happen in every kind of 100 million years. So we have 65 million years already used up the time, so we have 35 million years to go. Well, of course it's not so simple, because this is statistics, and statistics is, you know, most of you know better than me what is a kind of really the core of the statistics. But the point is that those things doesn't happen very often, but they happen. What is important or interesting thing is that every time I'm looking at this, at those graphs, well, the kind of events like Tunguska should happen every kind of, let's say, 100 years. Yeah, okay, Tunguska was 100 years ago, so those should be pretty common. But actually, from the Earth, kind of the human history, we don't know much of them, or we didn't know how to react them, or we were worried about some other things other than the impacts of blasts going around, and didn't make a kind of mark of them. But the point is, those small events should be should happen pretty often, but the large ones we don't really need to worry about. But okay, one point is about those 10-kilometer size objects, but there are smaller ones that also are big enough to make a change. Well, if it happened, let's say that okay, 10 kilometers too big, but if one in the size of let's say the 1 kilometer comes down, then in a continental area, this or in ocean, that doesn't matter really, because in all those coastal areas will be wiped out in let's say in the Atlantic Ocean or inhabited areas. So we are pretty much worried about those objects flying around us, and and you know that we are monitoring them, those near Earth objects, and trying to figure out which one is the next one. And what is really threatening is that well, the number is growing, and this is from a few days ago, the latest graph. And okay, well, there is not so many large ones, but larger than 100 meters, well, the pretty high number of those. And as we know, this is as well the same thing as we saw with exoplanets. Then you start looking and you know what you are looking, then you see of them, and lots of them. So, and okay, well, which one have the highest probability to hit us? As I said, well, those bigger than 1 kilometer are pretty rare. But those in a range of 30 to 100 meters are pretty common. So to remind you that if it's an iron object, asteroidal material, then 50 meters would create in sedimentary target about 1 kilometer size crater, and would kill everyone in a radius of 30 kilometers. So this is kind of I don't think that it does make us really nervous, but that we are pretty concerned about those things. Okay, so the only advice is just to keep running, because in some day something will happen. Some of those objects will come down, and let's hope that it doesn't hit us, or it's not big enough to kill everyone around here. Okay, but I've been talking about the bad sides of the impact, but is there anything good about them? So yes, of course. Well. You all, like always in life, you have the kind of the bad sides and the good sides, bright moments and not so bright moments. And one of the things that people have been thinking about is a transfer of life. And then this is, well, this was actually a very good point today to say that, well, we have a trouble with a evolution of the life on Earth, where we have water all around, and we do have continents. And okay, we learned that, which is really very good point, that the mid-ocean reaches, hydrothermal systems are not really the places where the life originated. But is there any possibility that we have originated the life somewhere else, or on Earth, and then transferred back to Mars? Because we are talking about the Mars and finding life there. So the principle, it's possible, because, well, we know for pretty sure that we do have impact excavated rocks from the Martian surface. And, well, it takes some time. It's about 15 to 20,000 years minimum to them to arrive Earth. And well, those rocks could carry some life if there was life. But there are problems, of course. Well, we have first escape. Well, the point is, well, it's 11 kilometers on Earth. It's about 2 kilometers on Moon, and then the Mars is about 4 kilometers. Is escape velocity. I'm right? Okay, pretty close. So, well, to achieve this, you need to have a big blast. It doesn't happen with someone took it, the woof, and throw it. So, well, this means high temperatures, high pressures. Then we have the space conditions. We have vacuum, we have temperatures plus and minus. Then we have radiation, all kinds of radiation. And then, okay, when we consider this way, then it comes the atmosphere and the entry, which is also the high temperatures. So, okay, it's a nice idea, but would it work? yes and no. Well, as much as we know, then really there are survivals in experimental settings made on Earth, or people have found some microorganisms surviving the radiation in outer space. There are different kind of success stories and different failures in this field, but the idea, principally, it's possible. Like, well, those organisms here, well, they do not survive very high impacts. But as I said, well, in a very contact zone, the pressures go up to, let's say, 30, 50 GPAs. But ejected material from the site, it goes up, it's in the range of about, let's say, 1 to 3 GPAs, have experienced the shock wave. So to say that, okay, well, there's pretty high survival here. So, okay, well, this is about shock, but what about the radiation? Then, yeah, we do have this funny animal, radio durance. Durance, or how to say it, which takes a pretty high kind of doses. So, and it's a funny thing with the rocks flying around in space, that actually you don't need a very thick layer of rock to protect the, let's say, spores or seeds or those microorganisms inside the rock. So if it's a fractured rock and they could go deeply into the rock, they could survive there. So this is possible, but to be really proven that it really happens. Specifically in this way, that from the Mars to Earth, but in the other way, this is another story. So this is the first good thing with impact cratering, that actually the cratering could provide the transport for life, as said, the leptopanspermia idea. Then craters form a very special habitats, and well, this, you know, the crater lakes, you nearly always in craters on Earth, at some point of their development, there was some lake or some basin, or you had some funny things living on the crater rim area or so on. But I mean, well, this is one way of looking of those things. But another thing is, and what is even more important when we start talking about the origin of life, of life on early Earth, that the shock rocks that are produced during the impact are kind of those provide a space for organisms, and well protected space actually, and this has been shown by Charles Coquelle experimentally that there is a real difference if the rock is shocked or not shocked, and the population densities are always higher in shocked rocks, because it's really a porous material. Well, this is Posumchi craters zoyoites, which is impact melt rocks, and you see all these pores here. This is cracked, but some of them are open, and you can find here some funny stuff growing. So and if you go and look closer, then you start seeing really a very, I mean, different things. I do not have any idea what those things are actually, to be honest. Well, other bacteria or some fungal stuff, but there is life in those impacted rocks. And well, not just only, what is also important, that those primitive organisms, they need to have some surface. They could occupy, but they also need nutrients, vital nutrients for them. And impact glasses and shocked rocks in general I mean, well, they dissolve at higher rates. So you compare, if you have a crystalline structure and you have the glass material that is, you know, disordered, then the dissolution rates are much higher, and it's easier to take out those nutrients from the glass rather than the mineral particles. So it's not really surprising that they do like the environment there, and how this kind of is related to the very early kind of life and the origin of life. Then it's not my idea, but the people have said it several times that impacted rocks, shocked rocks with a high porosity, with availability of different nutrients, could have provided kind of the place, a habitat where the life could have started or established. So and we had in the previous lecture some words about the hydrothermal systems, and that those mid-ocean range hydrothermal systems are not probably the places where the life was originated or habitated in the very early stages of the Earth development. But then, well, I was listening to your presentation, and yeah, my favorite story actually. This is impact-induced hydrothermal systems, because, well, again, you remember this huge amount of energy that is put into the rock. Some of it is left there. So you have the shock wave passing through the rock, and you have so-called latent heat there. You have heat, you have water, and we do have here on Earth water nearly everywhere. Even in the desert we have more water than on Mars or Moon, not talking even on the Moon. So you have heat, you have water, you generate hydrothermal systems. And so, well, we could speculate, this is just a speculation, that those impact-induced hydrothermal systems could have been places for subsurface life. And, well, the configuration of those hydrothermal systems is pretty different. Well, it's again simple system in simple craters, much more complicated in large complex craters. To tell you, well, if we have the melt pool here, well, it stays maybe for 1,000, 100,000, millions of years. This is, you know, this is a best sterilization that you could imagine, actually. I mean, you have the shock wave, and you have high temperatures, everything is wiped out, and it takes time before in the crater depression those hydrothermal systems start to evolve. So you first started running on the rims and in the central peak. But the point is that it's really possible, and besides of that, well, we have this, how do we know it, that we have these hydrothermal systems? We have the alteration products. Nearly in every crater on Earth, we go and look, we do see some hydrous alteration. Every hydrous alteration is not immediately the hydrothermal alteration or impact-induced hydrothermal alteration, but in most cases we do have some specific features telling us that, okay, well, this is not really a weathering type of alteration, but this is really the hydrothermal alteration. The impact, I don't want to go very deep into it, but their structure and the mineral assemblages are a bit different than the normal volcanic hydrothermal systems. Well, they have different structure and different assemblages, but we know from the alteration mineralogy and that those systems were there, and we can tell actually the temperatures and all other stuff out of that. But as I said, it's not so simple that, okay, we had this impact and we had water splashing down and coming back, and we have this hydrothermal system going on, and then we have microbes colonizing it. No, it's not so simple. And this is a case study from only 4-kilometer crater. To explain you, well, this runs for 5,000 years. Well, this central part is too high. I mean, the temperatures are too high for any life. I'm not talking about evolving life. I'm talking about supporting life. So we have this red zone. Those are hyperthermophiles. Well, it's less than 100, 120 degrees. And then we have this, not very well seen, but this is a thermophilic field. But this is the very beginning. Well, the central part, this is a boiling. I mean, this hatching here shows the boiling area, which is actually good because then the temperature drop is faster. Well, because we lose energy in the phase transition. So, and what is going to happen? Well, I put it running, and what we see, well, the central part is devoid of any life, but then, okay, it closes up, and then kind of the area suitable for thermophilic organisms kind of deepens with time. And this is, as I said, well, this is a pretty small one, the 4 kilometers in diameter, but if we talk about the time scales of those hydrothermal systems, then in the large ones, let's imagine about, let's say, 200 kilometers in size. Then the hydrothermal systems keep running for about 1 million years. And of course, well, we do have life here on Earth, and no one cares about, well, I do care, if there is anyone living in those hydrothermal systems. By the way, no one has, as far as I know, no one has seen in evidences of life in so-called impact-generated hydrothermal systems. The people have been looking and studying, but no really specific evidence of kind of this subsurface life. But this kind of keeps us thinking, okay, well, as I said, well, this is how it could happen, but then we are back on Mars, and the water is equal to life, and Mars plus water is a clay and life. Okay, well, this is what we are looking there, clays or carbonates, which is another tricky thing, where all those carbonates. And you all know this. It's fine to have it was fine to have then water in Noachian time, but it's all gone, and it's there, but it's ice. There is no liquid water. And the question is that if those impact induced hydrothermal systems could keep this water running. I don't know. Well, this is a pretty complicated question. The first question is, do we have any indication of those impact-induced hydrothermal systems on Mars? And well, answer is yes, because at least for now, well, we do have 3 craters, Toro, Mahuro, and Auki. Well, this was published just in last year, where people have looked into the exposed mineralogy, looking from distance, of course, and have discovered, well, this is a nice impact crater with a central peak and some hydrous minerals forming around. And what is important thing is, because we can predict from the Martian rocks, those mafic rocks, the composition of mafic rocks, from the kind of assuming the water composition, we can predict what minerals could form in those systems, and actually those mineral phases, different kind of zonation of mineral phases in those systems is pretty similar to the predictions. So those are what is one of the interesting things on Mars is because in here on Earth, in impact-induced systems, hydrothermal systems, we have quite high share of carbonates. I mean, in the veins running through the rock, we have the carbonate precipitation, calcite, dolomite, whatever the carbonate you can imagine, but not in Martian conditions. In those cases, you do not form really the carbonate, the vein mineral, but you have some iron, magnesium clays, saponite type things. You may have some calcium phases, prehnite, and silica, but not really the carbonate minerals. And people have been desperately looking for carbonates, but actually the chemical models do not predict it. So, okay, well, are there impact-induced hydrothermal systems on Mars? Seems to be that answer is yes. But what is their importance? Keeping water in subsurface liquid and supporting possibly life? Well, this is a big unknown here. Okay, and well, that's it. To comment, well, this is an impact, actually impact in impact, because this is a Posuntvi crater lake, and the lightning striking it. So it may happen twice. I don't know well if it's true, but anyway, thank you.